Welcome to the Punting is Winning podcast. Just two fans talking all things Hawkeyes. Here are your hosts, JD and Keith.
Welcome back, Hawkeye fans, to Punting is Winning, the All-Iowa podcast. We're your hosts, Keith and JD. Week number 5 is in the books, and Iowa was off in the bye week. Coming off the win against Minnesota at Minnesota. A little interesting to see that game yesterday against Michigan. I thought Michigan was taken behind the woodshed. Kind of gives you a perspective of maybe how good Iowa might be, and we're a little critical sometimes of how good we think we are or how good we don't think we are. And when you put ourselves comparatively to other teams, we're pretty comparable to other teams. We're right up there, I think, with Michigan at this point. And
I'd say we're even a little above average, to be honest.
Yeah, I would agree too. Michigan, that was a 27-24 at home. They haven't played outside of Ann Arbor all year. That's kind of change next week.
Questionable call towards the end of that game too on offsides. Iowa fans know about that one.
Yeah,
and we did that Florida thing with Chad Greenway.
Yeah,
I'm sure y'all remember that.
I've watched that. I've seen the pictures. I don't see where it was offside, but
I don't either. But somebody also said that Minnesota touched the ball before it went 10 yards too, and so that would have made it a dead ball. But I didn't see that either.
I didn't see that either. So it is what it is. There's nothing you can do to go back and change it at this point. It's
in the books.
If you want to fit into that conspiracy theory narrative, maybe it's the Big Ten Conference saying Michigan needs to be one of the top dogs at the end of the year just because they come off a national championship. Who knows? It just, honestly, Minnesota came back, made a game of it more than I thought they would, and that they showed more than they did the week prior at home. So kudos to them for making a game of it. They probably should have had a chance to tie it up at the end, but they never should have taken the pig home last year because that was not a fair catch. So
it all kinds of evens out.
Karma.
Yeah, it is.
So anyway, I digress. We'll go back to the question of the week last week. Let's get that answered and out of the way. Question was, when was the last time an Iowa player had 3 touchdowns in a game, and who was it? And a lot of people, myself included initially, first thing you go to is Amir Smith-Marset in that Holiday Bowl of 2019. And, he had a rushing touchdown. He had a punt return for or kickoff return for a touchdown, punt. And he had a receiving touchdown.
Yeah.
But somebody has done it more recently than that.
Yes.
And I will let you answer that.
Well, the answer to that is on September 18th of 2021, Tyler Goodson had 3 rushing touchdowns against Kent State in a 30-7 Iowa victory. So that's the answer to the question. Is Tyler Goodson, 3 rushing touchdowns, September the 18th, 2021. And until last week when Caleb Johnson did it.
Caleb Johnson did it, yes.
Yeah, so now that's now the more recent, but that was the question was prior to him who did it last. So, but
yeah, we did have a few people chime in, and ISM was the consensus answer, and I think each time it was like, nope, it's been more recent. And I don't know if anybody ever really actually come up with Tyler Goodson, but they may have.
Now, if you ask the question, who was the last non-running back for Iowa to score 3 touchdowns, then ISM would be the correct answer.
Yep. But yeah, it's quite an accomplishment. That's not a lot of people have done it. I'd love to have seen him get a 4th. That would have been pretty neat.
I'd like to see him get another year of college ball, but he decided to leave a year before his eligibility ran out, and he's making money in the pros, so good for him.
Yeah, he's stuck with the Colts, I believe where he's at.
Right.
And I saw they won today, so
yeah,
Pittsburgh, that knocked them out of the ranks of the undefeated, so good deal.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's say we move on to Ohio State week. Ohio State coming off a pretty convincing win over Michigan State. I don't know that it was It was closer in the first half than it probably should have been. Um, I'll let you go through the stats and the breakdown of that of Ohio State a little bit more. But
Okay.
you know, the first quarter and a half, I don't know that I felt like Ohio State was really head and shoulders above everybody else. But then after that, I think they decided that, well, it's time to start playing. And they do have so many playmakers.
Yes.
So
Yeah, they do. Ohio State is 4-0 on the season. They're 1-0 in the Big Ten after their win last night. They are number 3 rated nationally. The latest polls, and it may change tomorrow. Ryan Day's in his 6th season, but actually in his 7th because he took over for Urban Meyer in
filled in.
2018. Filled in. And so he's 60-8, and he's 2-4 in bowl games. But yeah, you can't take bowl games because kids don't want to participate
Right.
in bowl games and not get hurt for their NFL drafts. So 2-4 in bowl games. I don't know how much you take stock in that, but they're 39-3 in the Big Ten. I believe we talked about 3 losses. All 3 were to teams from the team up north in Michigan.
Yeah.
Their wins this season, yeah. I mean,
Teams that are named Wolverines.
yeah. The 4 wins they've got this season, they were 52-6 over Akron, 56-0 over Western Michigan, 49-14 over Marshall, and 38-7 over Michigan State, as we talked about. That was their only road game, was Michigan State. They're averaging 48.75 points per game and allowing 6.75 points per game. Their quarterback is Will Howard. He's a transfer from Kansas State. He is currently 72 of 105 for 1,039 yards, 8 TDs, 2 picks. He has a 68.6 completion percentage. Their running back room is kind of a two-headed monster. The reigning player that everybody will probably know their name is Travion Henderson. 31 carries, 276 yards for an 8.9 yard average. He's got 4 touchdowns. He also has received 4 passes for 17 yards. And the other guy who's probably actually played more and has got just as eye-popping a stats as Travion Henderson is a new player named Quinshawn Judkins. I believe he's a freshman. And he's got 47 carries, 390 yards, and an 8.3 average, 5 touchdowns, 4 receptions for 31 yards. And not only do you have to worry about running backs, but then they have wide receiver core that's probably as good as anybody in the nation. Emeka Ibuka, 21 receptions, 362 yards, average 17.2, 2 touchdowns. And then the guy that probably you haven't heard of, Jeremiah Smith, 19 receptions, 364 yards. That's an average of 19.2, and he's got 5 touchdowns. So you really have to pay attention to both those guys if you're Iowa.
Those 2 wide receivers have more receiving yards than Iowa has passing yards.
Yep. So really, I didn't go into. I know they have a tight end that caught a touchdown pass last night. His name is G, I believe. I didn't go into a lot of like the stats on their offensive lines and defensive lines. I didn't go into that. I think that's just they're good. That's all you really need to know on both sides of the ball. I don't know. Let me ask you this question before we go too much further.
Okay.
What does Iowa need to do offensively to be successful Saturday night or Saturday afternoon?
Well, they've got to control the ball. No turnovers. They've got to run the ball, but they have to have some semblance of a passing game.
Okay.
And they have to be able to move the ball. I'd say the best shot they've got is quick slants, kind of short passes over the middle. They do have some pretty good linebackers there as well. So kind of got to be leery of that. But utilize the tight end in this game. I think that's what Iowa has done. When Iowa has beaten Ohio State or played Ohio State as good as anybody else has, it's been a tight end game or a running game. You think back to 2017, Hawkinson had what, 2 touchdowns in that game?
Yeah.
And we rushed for 3. So those are things that I think that you've got to do. They're going to shut down their corners are too good. They're going to shut down the wide receivers. Now, that doesn't mean you look away from the wide receivers. You still have to try to get the ball to them. But you don't have to force things downfield. You just methodically take it down, control the clock, control the ball, keep the ball out of their offense's hands. That's the key to winning. I mean, I know it's kind of a lot of people say that's a no-brainer, but that truly is. When you play in Ohio State, you've got to keep the ball out of their offense's hands. And the problem is their defense is good too.
Yeah.
So, it's an uphill battle regardless of what you do. But to me, you've got to utilize the tight end more. You've got to continue to push the ball to the wide receivers, but you don't have to force it downfield as much. Go with something short, go with the intermediate stuff. And you've got to be able to establish the run, because if you can establish the run, then that opens up for the play action. That opens up the seam patterns for the tight ends a little bit more, brings the linebackers up a little bit, brings the safeties up a little bit. And you've got a chance at that point to get a little bit bigger of a chunk play out of that. And you've got to have Caleb Johnson just be Caleb Johnson the way he's been all year. So ball control is what it's going to come to. This is going to be, to win this game, you've got to have the typical Kirk Ferentz game plan, which is don't make mistakes, control the clock, run the ball, and keep the ball out of their hands. And I hate to say that because a lot of people will jump all over me. Oh, boring, but Ferentz ball. But that's how you beat Ohio State.
I would rather see boring with a win than an exciting game but lose.
Yeah. So what does Iowa have to do on the defensive side to keep Ohio State's powerful offense down?
Well, that's a big question, and I don't think anybody's answered it so far this year. So I don't know. I'm just going to go with limit the explosive plays. You've got a two-headed monster at the running back. You've got a two-headed monster at wide receiver. You've got a decent tight end. They're going to be tough to stop. Don't get me wrong. They're not number 3 for a reason. I mean, they are number 3 for a reason. So, basically the same thing that Iowa wants to do on offense is the same thing that Iowa wants to do on defense. Keep the ball in front. Make sure that they are methodical about their drives. Make sure that they drive. They don't want to give up any chunk plays. They don't want to give up any short drives of 2 or 3 plays and touchdown. They have to keep everything in front, and just like Iowa is designed on defense, make Ohio State take what Iowa gives them. Do not allow them over the top. Do not allow them to run down the sidelines on big running plays. You have to be gap sound on defense. You have to understand the scenarios, the situations of the game. What are they trying to do? If it's 3rd down and 7, maybe, and it's late in the first half and they want to you got to start covering the sidelines a little bit. Maybe they don't have any time. You just have to be savvy as to how the game is being played by the offense of the Ohio State. Limit 3rd down conversions. You really have to. If you can keep Ohio State down around 30% 3rd down conversions, you got a chance. And there's always a chance in the game. They do play it on the field, so it's not played in the on paper or in the court of public opinion. So you got to force Howard to throw the ball before he's ready with pressure. He has thrown 2 picks. He could throw more. I mean, I don't think Ohio State's seen a defense like Iowa's that they're bringing in.
Right.
You got to win the turnover battle. You've got to force turnovers. You've got to take more away than you give on offense. You have to give the offense short fields if you're turnovers. So try to take the ball away over in plus territory for Iowa. Will Howard is not the dynamic playmaker that they've had in the past with C.J. Stroud, Terrell Pryor, all of the guys, Dwayne Haskins, all those guys can run. I'm not sure this guy's got the dynamic running ability of those guys. Now, he can run. I just don't think he's quite as high on the list. And
he was a fairly versed running quarterback at K-State.
Yeah, but I just think he's not.
But like a power back, not like Jaden Daniels or somebody like that who's got the shifty moves. He's more of a can run you over.
Right. I've got a couple more things here. I put down you got to make Ohio State take the underneath. I just talked about that a little bit ago. You got to force Ohio State to be methodical. They are a big play offense, and they live on the big play, and they prefer the big play. And Iowa, you have to tackle the ball. You have to tackle well. You really do. You can't have
Wrap them up.
you can't have misses. They're that good. Their chunk plays are chunk plays. They're big plays, and they typically will. They just basically overpower teams at this point. And they're for Ohio State. Their mindset is that making the playoffs just not enough. And for Iowa, making the playoff would be huge.
Yeah.
So you have to understand that they're maybe a little bit more desperate because they have so much expectation placed upon them for the season.
Every year.
Every year. But I think this year, as much as any, that if it's not national championship game or bust, for them, it's really how it is. So, my thought is if Iowa can do all of those things and do the things on offense, we've got a chance. It's going to be a
nobody
tough
gave
game.
us a chance in 2017 either. So, strange things can happen. Granted, that was at home.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe an injury, maybe somebody from Ohio State gets injured. Now I know they have some very good players, and they could probably just substitute somebody else in as just as good. But if you have if Will Howard would happen to go out with a concussion for whatever reason, then the guy behind him has had some playing time. He's gotten in some games at the end of the games when they've blown out people, so he does have more experience than even with, let's say, Cade McNamara gets hurt.
Yeah.
We've got a guy that's played the Big Ten before, but hasn't played with Iowa that much this year. He's had 6 or 7 snaps down in the red zone, maybe, and maybe one when the first game of the season he had a series. But what I'm getting at basically is that even an injury to a key player to them, it may not even slow them down. It may slow them down a little, but not going to stop them. They're good. Yeah. They are very good, and there's a reason why they are number 3.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough task to have in front of you, but you've got to play them.
Yeah. But the schedule gets
going to be the best.
Yeah, the schedule gets drastically easier after this. Washington, I saw them play the other night. They throw the ball pretty well, but don't run it great. Rutgers took them out. It was a close game, closer than it should have been probably. After that is Michigan State. We saw what Michigan State had last night. I don't think they'll put up a whole lot against Iowa. They'll be better against Iowa than they were, obviously, last night.
Mm-hmm.
The team out of the Big Ten is scary good, actually, right now. Of course, you have to kind of wonder, is Indiana? I mean, they were pretty handily over Maryland last night. So,
yeah, I think I had Maryland up a little bit higher than I should have. After seeing them play, I'm not as impressed with. They're undisciplined. Yeah. And I think that's been, you go back to a few years back, I think when Iowa beat them, 52-14 or whatever it was that year.
Yeah.
That's the one thing, I noticed about it the most was they're just very undisciplined. They make stupid mistakes. And I haven't seen that get corrected since that game in 2021?
Yeah, it's 2021 or 22.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you've got a coach that's not correcting those types of things, you're just trying to rely on being more talented, and that's not going to happen in the Big Ten. You just aren't going to be more talented than half the teams. You might be more talented than let's say Northwestern is,
UCLA
or UCLA or something like that. But you're not going to be more talented than a Penn State or an Ohio State or a Michigan,
or
probably an Iowa.
Right.
Athletic from an athlete standpoint, maybe even a Purdue. Purdue always comes in and gets those pretty decent skill players. So on the outsides, I shouldn't say they haven't had really that great a running back situation over the last few years, but they usually have pretty good wide receivers and good quarterback.
The good thing is that Maryland game at the end of the season with Iowa that a lot of people were calling that Maryland was going to beat Iowa. I just don't think that's. I think that's a little. I think that's a little bit of a reach at this point. I don't. It doesn't scare me as much as it did 3 weeks ago.
And after watching Nebraska last night against Purdue, that's not as scary of a game either. I mean, yeah, they did beat Purdue, but that was going to go down in history as one of the most boring games ever. Until about midway through the third quarter, it's like, kind of like the Iowa State-Houston game too.
Yeah.
The final score is a little more deceiving than what the game actually was, because I think that was a 13-0 game with about 4 minutes to go in the game, and that's not a very good Houston team.
No, it's not
at all. And I've seen a lot of Cyclone fans. Oh my gosh, 10-0, 10-0. We're going to be 10-0. Well, first of all, you've never won 10 games, so you got to get there first. And two, if you're struggling that much with a bad Houston team, yeah, you've got a favorable schedule. We looked at it yesterday. You've got a favorable schedule, but pump the brakes on 10-0 because you got to play those games. So Texas Tech's not going to be a pushover even if you got them at home because they can score, and UCF's not going to be a pushover because they can score.
Yeah, I think Kansas State's all right. Not great, but they're all right.
Kansas is what we thought they were. They're Kansas again.
Yeah.
But pump the brakes. If you're an Iowa State fan, pump the brakes right now. That way you don't get your hopes dashed at some point.
Well,
I get
it. Every game that they win is helping Iowa. So, we kind of almost have to. I know it's very hard to do down deep in the hearts to root for them because every win helps us with strength of schedule and who we've lost to and that kind of thing. So, if you lose to Iowa State and they go 10-0 at their first 10 and they're in the top 10, and you lose to Ohio State, if we do lose to Ohio State, I hope we don't. And they're going to probably be in the top 2 or 3 the rest of the year, if not at some point maybe number 1. Those 2 losses don't look too bad.
Yeah. It is tough though. It's like saying, I think was it Iowa State and Notre Dame played basketball a few years back, and who do you root for? I don't like either team.
Yeah, but there's a lot of games that are still left to be played, and there's a lot of things that can happen, and that's why we love college football.
Quite honestly, if Iowa drops a game that they shouldn't, then I want Iowa State to lose every game because it doesn't matter whether that strength schedule helps us or not.
Oh, completely, 100%.
It's situational.
Yeah,
absolutely. Situational.
Anything surprise you with NCAA football last night, yesterday? Anything that just surprised you?
Yeah, I'm surprised at the fact that Ole Miss got beat by Kentucky.
Yeah.
I guess I shouldn't say it quite like that. I thought Ole Miss was better than they are because they've been putting up some gaudy numbers against inferior competition. So that's where you kind of get that. Maybe they're not as good as you think they are because of the quality competition. I didn't catch the Auburn-Oklahoma final.
Oklahoma came back and won that.
Okay. Because up until the point where, going into the fourth quarter, Oklahoma's been pretty disappointing.
Yeah.
Not the Oklahoma that we're used to seeing. I don't want to say maybe disappointment, more of I guess I saw it coming, was Wisconsin losing the lead against USC. I kind of saw that coming, anticipated that, but I didn't anticipate it being a 17-point loss.
I think the one that surprised me more than anything was how easily Alabama took Georgia. They were down 30-7 at the half.
Yeah,
and then hung on to win.
Yeah, Georgia came back and actually had a lead with about a minute and a half to go.
Yeah,
minute 50 something.
So, if Georgia was able to curtail that run that Alabama was on in the first half a little bit, we might be talking about Georgia winning that game.
Yeah.
But that's why they play them, and that's how these things have a tendency to shake out sometimes not the way you want them, sometimes the way you want them. And I really didn't care because it's it's SEC, and I really don't care who wins that. But it's gonna matter when it comes to Iowa's playoff chances. If they are, if they're still in the running, how the teams in the SEC do, because they're up against them.
Yeah.
It's a competition.
Yep. Yeah. Other than that, I think maybe Boston College's 1-point win over Western Kentucky was a little surprising. Yeah, really not a whole lot of surprising stuff. Baylor coming back on BYU was a little bit of a shock. BYU was up on them, what, 35-7 maybe? That ended up like 35-28 or something like that. So because Baylor's not the Baylor they've been over the last few years either. But that was a little surprising. But other than that, I don't know that there's really anything shocked.
There wasn't much in the Big Ten that really shocked me. I think Penn State took care of Illinois. I kind of expected that to happen.
It was a little closer than I anticipated.
It was closer, and I think Penn State, they're good. Are they as good as I thought they should be? No.
But Illinois is pretty good too.
Yeah, Illinois is not a bad squad at all, and they'll take some people out. I think they'll beat well, they already beat Nebraska, but I think there'll be some teams that, Indiana might even beat Nebraska coming up. That's going to be a closer game than most people think.
I didn't even realize they played. I hadn't looked at the schedule. Is that next week?
I don't know if it's next week or the week after.
Okay, I'll be a big Indiana fan.
I know Rutgers plays at Nebraska in the next couple of weeks too, so I can't remember which one goes how they go. But I kind of looked at the schedules there just briefly, and now it's kind of jumbled up a little bit in my head. But yeah, I guess there's a lot left to be played. We talked about that, and I'm excited about the rest of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And I just hope Iowa, if they don't win, and I'm hoping like heck that they do. If they don't win, I hope they keep it close and keep it respectable. Especially
what do
over
you
there.
think? Okay, so give me your idea of what close is. Within 10 points, within 2 touchdowns, within
28, 24, 28, 21. If Iowa can score 21 points on them, I'd be happy. If they score 24 on them, I'd be happier. But I think if Iowa can keep Ohio State under 30, nobody's done that this year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not sure how many will keep them under 30 the rest of the year. Oregon, maybe. I don't know. Maybe Oregon and Ohio State will do one of those games where it's 48-46 final, where there's not a lot of defense and a whole lot of offense. But that's one game I will be watching for sure.
Yeah, I do think, after watching Oregon a couple of times, watching Ohio State briefly, I think Ohio State's a better team at this point right now. But again, by the time they play, that might be a different story. You've got, you talked about it earlier, injuries. You've got people who are wearing down a little bit, or just teams getting better. Teams do get better.
Yeah.
So it'll be a good one. That'll be the game of the year in the Big Ten, I think.
It will definitely be. Iowa's had 2 weeks now, or will have 2 weeks by the time they get ready to play Ohio State, to be prepared. And I hope that they're pulling out some stuff out of the hat, like a rabbit out of the hat type of stuff, some magic. I hope that they are able to catch Ohio State off guard and at least get one really kind of a, wow, you never saw that coming out of Iowa type of play to really set them on their heels and kind of get them thinking, oof, what's going on here? So, there's a lot of weird things can happen. Fumble, Iowa could kick off return for a touchdown, get the game started early. They could hit Will Howard on the blind side like they did the last time they played and actually take the lead.
Mm-hmm.
And then at that point, and then if the defense can keep, and if the offense can keep from giving Ohio State the ball in plus territory and not turn over the ball, then, we're talking about maybe a closer game.
Yeah. I would be satisfied with a game similar to 2009 at the Shoe. Iowa lost that one in overtime, 27-24, or maybe 30-27, something like that. I don't remember what exactly the score was, but the James Vandenberg game. If we're going to lose.
Why was I thinking 34-31 maybe? But that's all right. Maybe I'm wrong.
I think it was 27-24.
Okay, you might be right.
If we're going to lose, that would be, it would suck to lose that way because that was kind of heartbreaking too. But, I would rather the score be a 3-point game or 6-point game than it be a 54-10 like it was a couple years back.
Yeah, that just nationally does
Snowballed.
not that nationally does not look good for Iowa, and
Right.
the people will remember that. Oh yeah, they got blown out by Ohio State on the road. That they're not probably worthy for a playoff consideration, even if they're 10-2.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of things that nationally you have to kind of pay attention to, because and I don't know like I said, we talked about this before. I don't know how the selection committee does this kind of thing, if it's based on actual numbers or if it's based on eye test or what. But like I said, Iowa. We've talked about this before. Iowa has to win pretty. They have to win very well. And if they lose, like this weekend, if they should happen to lose, they have to make it
pretty.
They have to lose pretty. They have to have it be close game. It cannot be a 21 point. I know right now, the last I heard, it was a 23 point spread.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm not a bettor and I don't take my advice, please, but I'm taking Iowa on that points, because I think they're 23 points. I think Iowa can stay within 23 points of them. But that's just me. I don't know. I don't bet. So
yeah,
don't take my advice.
Any bold predictions for that game this weekend? Anything like that? I don't have anything because
Iowa blocks a punt.
That kind of popped through my head a little bit. I'd say if I was going to make a bold, I would force us two turnovers.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be a fumble or an interception.
If you really want to go crazy, Iowa has a 65-yard pass for a touchdown. Now it might be a swing pass.
Period.
It might be a swing pass, and he goes 60 yards after the 5-yard completion, but it'd be a 65-yard pass completion regardless in the books.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I will not get the chance to watch that game as it happens.
Yeah, you can watch it after the fact.
Yeah, I tend to not want to watch them if they lose, so
I'm sure you'll be looking at your phone and see how things are going.
Yeah, I mean it'll be. I don't know what time's that game start. 2:30.
It's a 2:30 start on CBS, I believe.
Yeah, so that'll be 9:30 for me, 9:30 p.m. for me. So
probably.
Yeah, I'll be at a rock fest at that point. Probably not able to hear anything at that point either. So we'll see.
Well, if you can just look down and see Ohio State score on your phone, you don't need to hear anything. You just need to see it.
Yeah. So,
what do you think? We're going to make this a little bit shorter since it's just a review. Do we hit this week's question of the week?
Yeah. This week's question of the week brought to you by you.
Yeah, I thought this question up, and it might be easier than I think. Maybe we need to give people out there a little easier question. The last ones have been pretty difficult, apparently. Okay. In the Hayden Fry, Kirk Ferentz era of the last 45 years, how many times has Iowa beaten Ohio State? That's the question. In the 45 years of Hayden Fry and Kirk Ferentz eras, how many times has Iowa beaten Ohio State in football?
Okay.
No hints.
No hints. None at all.
And if you really want bonus points, you could tell me the years that it happened.
And the scores.
And the scores, yeah, if you want to do that. If you're looking it up, you're going to have the scores anyway.
Yeah.
But I don't know if anybody's going to get this off the top of their head, because I asked you the question before and you didn't get it right. And
I was off by one.
You were off by one. But I wouldn't have gotten it either had you asked me that question had I not looked it up.
Yeah. Okay. We'll see what the listeners respond with.
And thank you for all those that have subscribed so far. We appreciate it. We'd like to see more subscribe.
Getting close to 30.
We're 28 right now. We'd like to see it go higher, of course. I'd love to see 50 by the end of the season. That would blow me away, I think. But we'll take baby steps, and we'll just take those little chunks like Pac-Man as they come, and we'll just go from there.
Well, the viewership and the subscribership keep going up a little bit each week, so
Yeah,
I'm okay with that.
We're having fun, and I hope that everybody else is having fun. And if you want to comment that you're having fun, if you like what you're listening to, please comment. Tell us whatever you want to tell us.
Yeah.
We're fine with it.
Yep. We do want to mention that next week's podcast will be delayed by a couple of days. I will not be returning until late Tuesday night, so we will record something Wednesday and get it out as soon as possible on Wednesday. So we're only a couple days behind. But if you're kind of a regular to the channel and you notice that it's usually noon on Monday Central Time, it's going to be a couple days later.
Right. But this one will go out tomorrow, Monday. I don't know. You do it, so I guess you can tell me if it's going to be noon or not.
Yeah, I'll set it up for that.
Okay.
Yeah. Other than that, make sure you like and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Give us a thumbs up, comment on our videos here, and check us out on Spotify if you want to just listen to it. Spotify does allow for video podcasting as well, so we are on there on video as well. But you can just listen to it on your radio if you're on your way to work or you just want something to laugh at on a short trip, whatever. We're fine with that. You're listening. That's all that matters to us.
Mm-hmm.
We don't care if you're laughing at us or telling us how stupid we are. You're still listening to us, and that's what we want.
Yep.
And also check us out on Facebook as well. Leave us comments there. Answer the question of the week there. Try to make sure everything is mirrored there and on Twitter. And we do have a few videos out on TikTok as well. I try to get a couple of snippets out there. I did notice a couple of comments that we had on there were kind of Captain Obvious, but I would like to remind people that when you're watching those, and you're seeing those little 1-minute snippets on TikTok or 40-second snippets, you're getting just a brief encounter of what it is. You may not even know the context of what was asked. So refrain from the harsh criticisms if you don't, you're on TikTok. Yeah, talking the ACC or the SEC and the Big Ten being the top two conferences, yeah, that is kind of a no-brainer. But in the context of what we were talking about, it was important to bring that up. So just as an FYI.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, we'll wrap it up on that. We'll catch you everybody next week. Like I said, it'll be delayed by a couple of days, but we will put out content breaking down the Ohio State game. It gives me a chance to either watch it or catch the highlights of it at least at worst. So yeah, fingers crossed the Hawks put up a good performance and walk out of there with a big win.
Yep, both my fingers are crossed. So
it takes me to go out of the country to have them beat Ohio State. I'll do it every year if I have to.
There you go.
So, well, with that said, we'll end up on rousing Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.